Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teenage years, filling in the gaps so you don't have to be a trained expert to be a great parent. I'm Rachel Richards, journalist, parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi there, I'm Susie Usley, mindfulness coach, mindful therapist and musician, and mother of 3 teenagers. 2 of them are twins.
Susie, do you know what the term NEET refers to? N-E-E-T.
I've actually heard that.
It's an acronym.
I can't remember though.
It's not in employment, education or training.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's used by when they measure things happening around the world. And do you have any idea how many young people are NEETs in the UK? So these are between 16, I think, and 24.
I don't know,
What
but
percentage?
I heard something on the news where it has shot up, but I can't remember any stats.
I love that you've said that, because that's why I started looking into it.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the latest official data from the Office of National Statistics showed that at the end of last year, 13.4% of those aged 16 to 24 were classified as NEET.
Okay.
Right? So they're not in employment, they're not in training, and they're not in education. So it's like, what are you doing? Okay.
Don't they have to be though? Like, how does that work? Okay.
I don't know.
Who's checking
Anyway,
up? Yeah. Okay.
and you know, I always like to put figures in context. So I hunted for a comparison and I found the PricewaterhouseCoopers Youth Unemployment Index for 2024, which says that we're average amongst the OECD countries. And before we rely too much on these figures, I want to add that even those who collect them admit that the response rates are really low, so they're not very reliable. I wanted to use this episode to talk about preparing our kids for work because, well, first of all, statistically, kids who are NEET, so between sort of 16 and 24, they tend to do worse in work generally anyway, because this is a big, important launching area. It doesn't mean they're going to fail completely. It just means we need to kind of get them cracking on at that age. I've seen headlines like the ones you'd seen, okay? For example, the FT headline, young people are rejecting work. Why? And the BBC, as the government tries to tackle the unacceptable rising levels of worklessness. Worklessness, yes. And, you know, okay, global issues like climate change and AI give us and our kids a sense of helplessness about the future. So I want to talk about the positive things that we can do, because I think we can all feel very panicked when we see things like that. First of all, it feels like we're catastrophizing because we're feeling like nobody's working anymore. This terrible younger generation who are not getting on with things. So we've got these global issues like climate change and AI, and they give us and our kids a sense of helplessness about the future. And I don't want us to feel helpless. This program is not about being helpless. This is about enabling us, isn't it? So we're going to talk about the positive things that we parents can do to ensure our kids don't end up NEET, and also if they are at the moment, how we can support them.
Nice.
Okay,
Brilliant.
That's an idea anyway. I'm not sure it's going
Good
to deliver,
topic.
but we can
Let's
try
go.
anyway. Right. Do you have a nugget of wisdom for us, Susie?
Well, I'm not sure if it's of wisdom, but I have a nugget, and it's kind of linked to the episode we did last time on sort of nudging and letting go. And my 17-year-olds did their driving theory test this last week, and in the UK, it's, in my opinion, ridiculously difficult. Like, why does it have to be that difficult?
Really?
I think so. I think the pass mark's really high. Loads of people fail it. The stats for failing
Interesting.
it are really high. And I mean, I definitely wouldn't have passed without revising with them. Definitely not.
Yes.
Like, it's random questions.
Okay.
Horrible test. Anyway, so they were they're desperate to learn to drive, and they were like, oh, we need to get our driving theory. They're kind of really on it, which is amazing. And they insisted on booking in for an early date. And I wanted to take them only to one centre because we don't have one like right nearby, which in hindsight wasn't the smartest move, because then I was left going, oh no, what if one of them fails and one of them passes?
Oh no.
And we could go to one that was quite a long way away at the same time. Anyway, boring details. They, up until the test, they were both quite busy and one of them was a bit poorly. And I gave them a bit of a telling off, like old school, not old school, but like, I don't think you're going to pass, guys. I think you need to get your fingers out and revise, because this is actually really difficult. You can't wing this. And it was particularly to one of them, but I had to address it to both of them.
Can't guess who.
And so then they did pull their fingers out and they did revise. And thankfully they both passed, which was great. And afterwards, actually, they were like, "Oh, Mum, thanks for nagging us."
Oh, that's great. So they realised.
But it was weird.
Yes,
it was weird. It was like, it was just a really good example of, for me anyway, of the dance that we have between nudging and letting go.
Yeah.
If I didn't say that, and I said this to them, if I don't tell you this, then you're not going to pass, and then you're going to be really annoyed. And I have this information. You need to knuckle down, and you need to put some hours in because you need to learn.
But
this
also,
stuff.
it kind of inconveniences you. You have to then take them to the test centre again, and this is.
And they would have to pay for the next one. I told them.
I like it. That's always good. That works for me too.
Yeah, they get it. They also get it because it was only once they start really going through it, they go, "Oh, actually, it's quite hard, and I do need to revise." And thanks for making us do it.
I've got a funny story about that. My husband is an ex-aerobatic pilot, so he's a very high level pilot. And one day he bussed airspace, just flying along normal flying. And what happens is if you go into controlled airspace, there's a kind of message that comes on the system, and you have to do a test because they want to. It's kind of a slap on the wrist and a test that you have to do to make sure that you're current with what you can and can't do. And he just sat there and went, this is ridiculous. It's so easy. So he was you could just do it at home. So he could have looked all the questions up and he didn't. And he failed. So then he had to go through an entire procedure. I just said, why didn't you, that's weird. Why didn't you look it up? And he just went, I just thought I knew it all.
Yeah, very interesting.
So even, and when you get older.
What I said to them was like, because obviously if they fail something with their A-levels or something challenging, then I would never talk to them like that.
No,
but it was something like you are both capable of passing this test. Like, of course, totally capable. So pull your fingers out. Yes. Whereas in other situations, that's totally inappropriate.
Yes.
And if they hadn't passed, of course we'd have, but do your best. And if you don't pass, then we'll take it from there.
Okay. And to not put too fine a point on it, when you consider the range of IQ in the UK, anywhere, 100 being the mean, there are many, many people below 100 in IQ who actually take that test and pass it. So it's not, it's hard, but it's just drilling, isn't it? It's knowing.
Which also makes me think, why does it have to be that hard? Yeah. It's a bit unfair. But there we go. Another discussion.
So mine is going to be a quick one. It's basically my daughter was having a tough time about something and she was having horrible dreams. And she said, Mummy, I've just got to stop dreaming, because she was struggling with her sleep. And I said, darling, you don't know. You don't want to stop dreaming. That's your brain processing stuff when you're in your subconscious. It's actually really healthy. If you're going through hell, you have to keep going. And that's the only way through it. Just, like coming back to that balloon analogy that you used before, where if you push that balloon down in the water, all that will happen is it will pop up explosively at some point. So I told her that. A few days later, she said, oh, it's gone.
Yay.
Right. So, and sometimes it's not that quick, but, and we have challenges where we're stressed because we're scared for our kids and we're trying to fix things, but we have to go through it.
Yeah.
Just pushing it away doesn't fix it, does it?
Allowing it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Now, back to thinking about our kids in the world of work. What's notably different from when I was a kid is I think it's much harder to get experience.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know when you started working. I had a paper round at 13. And I had so many jobs. I was a waitress. I worked in a fish and chip shop. I worked in a wildfowl sanctuary. I worked as an estate agent. All of these things. I mean, loads of things. I freelanced a lot as a waitress. And now I look at my kids and I think they weren't allowed really to have formal work until 16.
No, they're not allowed. No.
And I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case.
No, it wasn't. The laws changed. When I was younger, I think I probably started later than you, but I did babysitting. I did waitressing. And then when I was doing music, most of my work was gigs. Yeah. Like wedding gigs or playing at background music. And
every single time you do this, you learn. And it's really interesting because I know that you'll have a point to make on this, which is I had a discussion on Threads in which a mum had advised her kid to create a CV and go around to all the local businesses asking if they had work. Mm-hmm. And she said her daughter, who was nervous, was told to apply online. She went in with a CV and they said, no, it's all online. I know you've had the similar thing with your daughter where she had to go through all this online application stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
tests
it's crazy. Like both my 17-year-olds really wanted jobs. They started sixth form. So they wrote a CV. Actually, my daughter started. She's really on it, and she made her CV, and she's done loads of babysitting already and stuff. So she made her own CV, and she got some references from her babysitting mums, which were very glowing. And she went round in where we live with this CV and gave it out, and was told again, do it online. So she did those ones online. She just got on with it. And she was super lucky because the next day the bakery contacted her and said, we've got an opening. So it's also timing. You can be lucky. Yeah. But then she had to go through this crazy process of, what do they call them? Trial shift, another trial shift, and a training, and it's naughty. There's a lot of unpaid stuff.
Unpaid labour. We've heard about this.
And then her twin was like, "Oh, I want a job too. I want a job," and was slower on the uptake than she was. But he did get on with it, and he got his CV, and he went round before a little bit later, and maybe the market was sewn up, or she'd just been lucky. Who knows? I know that it's harder at the moment, and there was nothing, and he was a bit like, "Oh," and I was, "Don't give up, don't give up. People don't get a job immediately normally. You just have to." It's a really good lesson.
Great point.
Keep going.
Yes.
An adult has to maybe apply for 200 jobs at the moment. Like, keep really going. Tough. It's nothing to do with you. There's just not a job at the moment. And he was like, oh, okay. So then after Christmas, he went round again. I said, go round again. And I kind of walked round with him for some of it, but never went in. And he would have killed me if I'd gone in as well. Like, he's very like, Mum, back off. But I was walking the dog and keeping him company, that kind of walking. And then he did stuff online. And they all told him, we haven't got anything at the moment, but give us your CV and we'll bear you in mind. So he was like, he was really bummed by the whole thing. He really wanted a job, was really motivated. And I was a bit like, this is such a shame because he's really motivated to keep going. And then one of the places, the garden centre actually, that had said, we don't have anything, but give us your CV, contacted him and said, we've got an opening. Wow. Can you come and interview? And so he did. He was really nervous. He had to do a formal interview, which didn't turn out to be that formal, but they presented it as formal. And then he had to do a trial shift, and then he had to, fill in a load of forms, do loads of health and safety. It's like a whole. I was like, what happened to come on 10 minutes early on Saturday? I'll show you where the loos are and where to hang your coat, and off we go. Like, it's completely different.
It's really different.
And then he got another call from a restaurant that said, do you want to come and do a trial shift? So actually he's landed 2 jobs.
Great. And
that's not going to last forever because that's too much for him at the moment. But it was a really good lesson for him in like, don't give up. Just keep at it and you will be rewarded. Yeah. But it's not so easy to get
I think it's really challenging. And I think that's a wonderful message.
Yeah.
And what happened with me was, or my daughter, is I drove round to this cafe because I said, I've seen that they're looking for people. Yeah. And she got out. I parked further down the road. She got out, went up to the manager who was emptying the bins and said, hi, I'd really love to have a job in your cafe. Yeah. And he actually walked down the road and said, are you her mother? And I said, oh, yeah, hi. And he said, well done for staying in the car because absolutely. I don't like it when the parents
don't go in.
Well, also it's because it's kind of, they don't want kids to rely on their parents too much. So she got that job. She had tried out and got the job.
Amazing.
And then the other job she's got again, she turned up and just said, hi, I'm really would love to help you out. Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I think the earlier we get our kids doing things like this, the more they realize that you have to just keep going. Yes. And that people very often that they'll give you more latitude as well when you're young and you're making mistakes and you're on minimum wage. You kind of can break things and do it wrong without it being catastrophic. I think when you're 21, 22, leaving higher education and you've never done any work, that's really daunting. Yeah. And not that people do that, but I'm just saying that I think actually it's really beneficial. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing it gives them is confidence.
Yeah, completely agree.
Which is just so valuable. Yeah. Confidence to have a conversation with somebody that is difficult. Just confidence and confidence in themselves. It's the old classic, isn't it? If your self-esteem is lacking, then make yourself a really easy challenge to stick with for a couple of weeks. Like, I'm going to drink a glass of water every day for 2 weeks. And then when you do it, you can look back and go, I did that. I believe in myself
Yeah.
a bit more. It's that kind of thinking, and it's just so valuable.
Yeah. And I've noticed that with my daughter, what's been extraordinary is that she now, her self-worth is entirely to do with what she's able to do, is not based on social media or what her friends think about her. And she's having to deal with people from all sorts of genders. She's dealing with little babies and toddlers. And so she's looking at these.
That's such great experience.
It's great experience. And elderly people and, you know, managers who've got very big attitudes. And you just go, well, you know, no, but, you know, she's having to manage this and go, okay, I can push back a bit on this, but there's no, right?
And remembering
it's very
stuff.
Helpful.
Really good skills.
Yes.
I was talking to my eldest, who's not been so out doing jobs as the other two, but he's done other things. But it's the confidence side. So he had something the other day actually that he had to do, and I was kind of empathizing with him and saying, oh yeah, it's kind of hard, this adulting lark, isn't it? I think it's really hard too. And he's like, yeah, it's really hard. He had to talk to someone. It was difficult, and he didn't want to have to. And I said, because he had to ring the bank, like, I don't know, 18 months ago, ages ago. And he was really worried about it. And I said, do you remember when you had to ring the bank and about something that had gone wrong in his account? And he was really worried about it. It all worked out fine. He didn't want to do it, but he did it. And I stayed in the room with him, but didn't get involved at all. And he said after, oh my God, I was sweating and it was really challenging, but he did it. And the conversation went brilliantly and it was all fine. I said, do you remember having that conversation? And he went, oh yeah, but that wasn't so bad. And I went, no. You were really nervous and you thought it was really challenging. And he went, oh yeah. And I said, so you just have to do these things once, sometimes twice, but once. And then you're like, oh, I got this, I can do this. Yeah. And that's, if we don't put our foot out into the world to do the first time, then and keep ourselves comfortable and small, then we don't try.
No, absolutely.
Super important.
Absolutely. Now, do you want to hear a statistic that might blow your mind?
Go for it.
According to the OECD, lowest rates of NEETs, right? We've got 12%, around about 12% in the UK, right? Where do you think the lowest rates of NEETs are?
Oh, gosh. I have no idea.
The Netherlands, Switzerland, and Iceland.
Oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense now.
The bottom three are Italy, Colombia, and Greece.
Interesting. They're very different countries, aren't they? I mean, the Netherlands, they don't wrap their children up in cotton wool, so they will like go out and get a job.
I looked at the areas where they have really low level rates of NEET in the youth, and strong vocational training, which is like skill matching the education system with the labour market so that you actually don't have mismatches. Government-backed initiative to reduce unemployment. So youth-friendly work policies, like in the Dutch labour laws, encourage employers to hire young people by providing subsidies and ensuring fair treatment for part-time workers, gig economy regulation, and strong vocational counselling services. So counselling services that match kids up with possible jobs. You know, welfare and support systems so that kids who are struggling, you know, mental health and things like that. It's really important.
Whereas maybe here we've gone a little bit towards, if we can, and I'm aware that some kids need jobs to, you know, be able to eat and stuff like that. Like some people need that. And also the cost of living mean there are less of the, you know, the minimum wage jobs because other people need them too.
Yeah.
So I think we've gone a little bit towards, for those who are able, this idea that your education is so important. It's so important. You must get a good education. So you don't want to get a job because that will take away time from your studies. And our school systems are so, or they can be quite intense and very, very stressful for the kids. So I think there's an understanding almost of the last year of school, or, you know, you give up your job because you've got to focus on your studies. Yes. I think that plays a role. And if you've got mental health problems, then, you know, let's cut out the stuff that is stressing you. Maybe you don't need to do the job kind of thing. Whereas maybe, and this is just a thought, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's better to have something else as well.
I agree. Yeah.
So there is an element of
I think there's a strong cultural element of that, of the, you know, our education system, which Dr. Rebecca Winthrop talked about in The Disengaged Teen, which has a very achievement-driven system, and then the overscheduling of spare time that's also crept in. And so, for example, with my daughter, who's actually got an offer to Oxford, I know she's working really hard. I know it. But when it's the holidays, I've said because she's on an agency books and she gets sent shifts where she can go and work in bars and things like that. And I'm like, go. You need this. And she always comes back tired but buzzed.
Yeah.
She always feels great because it's completely different to what she's doing on a day-to-day basis. It takes her completely out of her head. And so I think even the ones who are really high educational achievers, who are very academic, it's super helpful and super good for them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So what I thought would be helpful for us parents is actually looking at what employers think we need in terms of skills in the workplace. Because I've actually asked somebody else the other day and they came up with the thing that was number 6 on the list, not the first thing. So the World Economic Forum had a Future of Jobs Report 2025, and there was a chart that showed what employers consider to be core skills for the workforce. And this comes back to this age of agency, which we discussed in the Disengaged Teen book that I read. So number 1, what do you think number 1 is? Most important thing employers consider to be a core skill. Good answer. It's actually analytical thinking.
Oh, okay.
Number 2, resilience, flexibility, and agility. I'm not agility as in gymnastics. No. I'm going to put all these in the podcast notes if somebody wants to read them. Leadership and social influence, creative thinking, motivation and self-awareness. Technological literacy comes in at 6.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
But it's interesting because somebody I spoke to said, they need to understand the technology. And I just said, you know what? Well, you can, but actually what they're saying now is they're saying we have enough programmers. We want people who understand how to manipulate the stuff, but that's creative ingenuity, that sort of stuff. And then that was just about empathy and active listening and curiosity and lifelong learning.
I'm surprised those are so low down.
I'm surprised they're low down, but they are important. You don't want to work with an idiot
or someone who's not very going to listen to you or empathetic. That's really important in a team.
But I thought it was interesting that analytical thinking was right up there and resilience and flexibility.
Yeah, that is super interesting because then you can, if you have an analytical way of thinking and you're creative and all of the other things, resiliency.
You've got it all.
You can learn on the job.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is contrast that with what they actually get in school.
That's depressing.
Right? No, but it's not, because if you actually listen to Dr. Rebecca Winthrop, she said, we are the missing piece in the puzzle. We parents, these schools, the systems are changing, but they can't change overnight. It's not the teacher's fault. We can't blame the teachers. Also, we shouldn't sit there and say school's pointless and any of this stuff. Do not put the schools down. What we need to do is we need to put in things in their life outside of the school hours that aren't overschedules, where they are going to develop some of these other things. And that's where we can come in, right?
Interesting.
And one other thing to add to the pot is a report that I saw in the Times last month citing the Department for Education Research. And that found 9 in 10 businesses are struggling to fill skills gaps. And the biggest gaps are at entry level. And those polled talked about a lack of employability skills for entry-level positions, and they included technical and IT skills, but also soft skills like customer service and management. So we can start in the home. And one of the things that I thought was amazing was the interview with Sam Kelly talking about notice and do. I'm going to keep mentioning this.
I love that. That's
so hello.
Like, why didn't I think? It's one of those... Yes. Duh, why didn't I think of that? That's so obvious.
Right? When we were talking, I just said, oh my goodness, this is setting your child up for success at work. Because I'm telling you now, every time I've had to deal with a team or I've had new interns, I just think, oh God, please give me people who just get on with it.
Yes.
Because even though I know my job is to show them how to do things and to encourage them and to support them, I have my own job as well.
Yeah.
And I want somebody who goes, oh, well, I could do that.
Yes.
Or maybe we could, or just checks in with you and goes,
would you like me to do that? Yes.
Right? Rather than me having to constantly think, so when people, and I've said that to my kids at home, if they come to me and they say, well, what do you want me to do next? I go, you've just created a problem for me because now I have to think. And when I'm under a time pressure, I can't think of a job for you. Can you just go and find one?
Yeah.
Right? So actually embedding this in our home life is extraordinary. It turbocharges their ability to, when they get, with the very first jobs they do, they're confident because they know from being in the home, they know how to spot what needs to be done. They're used to looking for the gaps and they go, oh, I can do that. my goodness.
Yeah, it's a real
That will help them
gift. I'm just
fly.
sitting here going, oh, wish I'd known that earlier.
But we can
It's
still
never
do
too
it
late.
now. We can still do it now.
One of
right?
them's not at home, but he is sometimes.
Yes. But even when they're at home, you can actually really introduce it and talk
Yes.
about the mental
Yes.
load of parenting
Yes.
and like why, because that's why I started talking about a team a while back where I kept saying, you know, I've done this for the team. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I think this is even more powerful. And it's this sense of, you know, why do we let one person, if you're running a company, you don't get them CEO to do everything.
No.
Or to have to think of everything. They get people in place who actually can do all the bits and pieces for themselves.
Actually, one of my kids has started going, actually, he said it twice. Like, I'd like to do more, Mum. I'd like to do more in the house. And I was like,
I
wow.
love that. Yes.
I think that's amazing. I mean, it's not really materialized massively yet, but the message was great.
But you see, even with
I picked up on
that, what I've noticed is that I'm getting so much more. For example, particularly one of my daughters. One of them was really hands-on already. The other one was really hands-off, and she's become super hands-on.
Yeah.
And she's noticing. She's really noticing. But what I noticed is that I need to be really accepting of the way she does things.
Yes.
I can't sit there and say that's the wrong.
Yes.
But if she's not doing it well and something's not quite right, what I'll do is afterwards I'll say, oh, I don't think I showed you a better system for that. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
And allow them to say yes or no. And if they say, no, I'm fine, you can say, oh, well, maybe you have a think about it.
Actually, one of my kids, he will absolutely kill me for saying this, but he never listens to it, so it's fine. Cleaning the toilet after you've used it. And I've mentioned it a few times because we have an honesty policy on most things in our house. And I said, mate, you know, toilet clean. And he went, I don't know how, and it's all tricky. And I went, well, watch me. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do this one for you. I'm going to show you. And he made a joke going, you know, now you've done it for me. And I went, yeah, but now you know. And know really exactly how to do it. And actually, it's been done every time since.
That's the thing. Once that's the whole thing, because it's actually I go one step further. I just say, oh, I'm so sorry I haven't shown you properly how to do this. And I do I layer it on. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's my fault. But once I've done that and I've explained it, they don't really have an out, do they?
No, I have an expectation.
So I also looked at the sorts of workplace skills that the life skills that they need. And I think what's interesting is the things like time management, which is work in progress. They're all executive skills.
Yeah. Some of them have weaker ones and stronger ones in different areas, don't they?
And we kind of hope that they happen, but they take some kids, it just takes so much longer. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is rather than go, oh, they can't do that, is we have to go, okay, you just work on one thing at a time. Just go, time management's really a big problem at the moment. Let's just try and work with that. Responsibility, communication skills. And the communication skills, I shared one on Instagram the other day, which I loved, which was this guy saying, whenever you're out, just say hello to the people in the queue in front of you and the people behind or the people in the shop, and do that with your teams. And I've been doing this for quite a while. And my husband always just goes, oh, God, you talk to everybody.
I get told that.
But actually, I've noticed my kids are doing it now. They're really, because they've sort of seen me doing it and that nothing terrible happens.
Actually, it's really nice and you feel really good afterwards. That's brilliant. It's role modelling it,
Yes, and it's that... I think a lot of the social media stuff doesn't feel that fluid and comfortable. No. You know, and for example, I met up with a friend of mine the other day who we used to work at CNBC together. Hi, Patricia. And we haven't seen each other in years. And we've just reconnected because she was over in London and she's got a lovely daughter who's a similar age to mine. And we all met up for a coffee. Nice. And it was lovely. And she said afterwards, she said to her daughter, so did you get her phone number? She went, no, I've got her Instagram. And Patricia said, wait, why don't they call? Like, why don't people call each other? Because she always leaves voicemails and talks to me. And I just
don't call people.
People don't do. Yeah, things have changed, and it's a much more sort of they creep into their friendships. They sort of very slowly they look at each other. They eye each other up to start with, don't they? Because it's kind of feels. It just feels bigger because I think these kids have gone through COVID, aren't used to.
But
some
maybe
of
they just
these
do it in a different way. Like they
do it in a different way.
Instagram is just a different way of communicating.
Yes, but that doesn't help you if you're at work and you're having to deal with clients.
No, that's true.
That's my point. So my point is, yes, we can accept they do it in a different way, and I've got to keep using the and word, and they also need practice at doing the real world stuff of picking up a phone and calling people.
Yeah,
and
because it's scary.
Yeah, and making those connections.
Yeah.
Because I remember finding that hard, and I was living in the age of the telephone.
Yeah, I still don't really like picking up the phone and calling people. If it's something that is important, and actually sharing that with my eldest, who was going, I don't want to have to do this. I don't like calling people.
Yeah,
and he was like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of...
I like that. Yes, just being able to admit that it's tough for me too.
And it doesn't look like it's tough for me. It looks fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. I've got to make this cool.
Just keep faking it.
Yeah. Tell me about your boring insurance policy. Come on, tell me.
And I just think all of these things that, this employability, I know that it sounds... Look, I know that our job is not to turn out the workforce. I know that our job is to love our kids and nurture them. But I do think that they will feel happier and more successful in life, and if they can work.
Yeah. And
so I'm just talking about those sorts of skills that we can build in our home environment that are aside from the stuff. Because, I so often, I'm sure lots of people have seen this, where people say, oh, this is what they should be teaching in school. And you think, well, why don't we teach that?
Yeah.
Like skills with finance. And I just think we are the extracurricular stuff that they can.
Yeah, that's a really valid point, because it would be great if they were doing all that stuff in school, and hopefully the tide would turn. And it's going slowly. Yeah. But if we can accept that that's actually not happening, whereas we seem to be resisting that it's not happening and not offering it.
What that's my job.
Yeah, but I mean, it should be I think it should be in schools, and it's not. Well, some of those skills they should be more prevalent in schools. I totally agree with that. But if they're not, then we can bang our heads against the wall and resist that they're not, or we can take action ourselves, can't we?
Yeah. And I think also these skills we've just been talking about, and talking to other people, and either on the phone or face to face, and, noticing and doing things, is also connecting them to a community. And I think understanding community, I think we've done this wrong. I think we have not understood community over the decades. And I think I'm not trying to reinstate an old-fashioned village or community, because I think that we don't want that either. But I do think we need to somehow have a hybrid model. And just things like when you're walking around the streets and you see rubbish, taking a litter picker and just saying, who does this?
Responsibility.
Well, we can do this. Yeah. It stops our kids being passengers in their own lives and thinking, oh, who's in charge of that? Oh, it's me.
And then pointy finger, yeah.
Yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I would like to advocate for the sooner our kids can find opportunities to work in any way, the better. Yeah. And preferably something other people where they're helping other people.
Yeah, if they can. And of course there'll be people who a job isn't possible and they can't. And that doesn't mean if you haven't got a job with a teenager, your life is ruined at all. Yeah, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
But it's really a really helpful thing to do.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely made a difference for my teens anyway. Right. Well, so I hope that helped. I don't know. But just rummaging around in what's going on with the workplace, and also trying to make you see that it's not that we have a broken system. There's one other thing I wanted to mention was Dr. Leonard Sachs, who wrote this book about how we have this generation of teenage boys who think it's absolutely fine to play video games and live in their basement, their parents' basement, and they're not looking for work. And he talks about that, and I think there is that narrative, but it's not everywhere and it's not everyone. And I think thinking that these teens are like that, because he says, there's no successful civilization that allowed that. People have to work. You have to make a living. But I think
black and white, though, isn't it?
It's very black and white, and I don't want that to be the narrative. And I also don't want the narrative to be, that all these billionaires should just be giving us all their money. Because yes, it's a broken system. It's not a good system. I understand that, but actually, we need to work. While we're politically trying to change things, we also need to look at how we can enable our kids to feel really positive about the world they're going into. Yeah, because if we don't do that, then they're just going to feel terrible.
Yeah, and the earlier you take the uncomfortable steps, the better. And just the idea of being in something that's uncomfortable and you got through it and doing it. If that's all you get out of it, that's an amazing gift.
There you are. That's the way to end this. Right. So let's help our teens by giving them a positive outlook on life, and to see that the challenges that are in the workplace are exciting, and it had that explorer mindset that, what can I do? Where can I go? How can I find something that really interests me and try that? Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, the other thing is actually when they start working, please, I just told my daughter before she went in, just so you know, you're going to really mess up. You're going to break things. You're going to drop things. You're going to, things are going to be terrible. It's fine. We all did. We all did it. I survived.
And it's okay that you're just doing it for the money, because mine are definitely just doing it for the money.
Yeah. So just give your kids that heads up before they head in, so they don't think it's catastrophic when they do something dreadful.
Yeah,
because they will.
Good advice.
Right. If you found this useful, go on. Send it to at least one other person that you know, and you could give us a review. We love hearing your opinions. I love hearing the opinions, even the bad ones.
Yeah.
We don't really get many bad opinions. We get feedback.
Give us some bad opinions.
We get some direct feedback, which is fine. Tell us what you think. I'm always interested. teenagersuntangled@gmail.com. You can get in contact with Susie.
Yep, find me on my website where all my links are. It's www.amindful-life.co.uk.
And social media as well.
Yeah, all the links are on that. So on LinkedIn and Instagram.
And I'm doing a lot on LinkedIn now. I find LinkedIn really interesting.
Do you know, all the interesting all my social media.
Have you? Well, good for you.
Yeah,
good for you.
So I'm not doing anything.
No. You know what I'm doing on social? What I'm doing on LinkedIn is I'm hunting for people, and I'm suddenly making connections between. So someone posts something, and I think, gosh, that's really interesting. I find the person, follow them, and now I'm getting extraordinary. There's a lot of the people I'm interviewing are people I found on LinkedIn.
Oh, really? Interesting. I think
Who knew?
It's brilliant. I think it's really brilliant.
Who knew? No. So if you're not on, my husband's not on social media.
No.
So don't worry. I think you don't have to be at all.
I kind of need it for my work, so I probably should go back on. But I'm having a bit of a detox.
Yeah, just go on her website. She's there. You know where she is. And if you want to message, just use the text button. Remember, I can't message you back because I can't see you. And the website is www.teenagersuntangled.com. You can find all of the episodes, reviews, sign up to the newsletter. I think there's still a thing where you can leave a voicemail. And that's it. Have a big hug from me and a great week.
Yeah, and bye-bye from me.